This is George Thompson, your host with the Christian Stewardship Network. I'm honored here today to have the chairman of the Christian Stewardship Network, Chris Goulard, here, and then also a board member, David Briggs. I just have a few simple questions. I'd just like to talk a little bit about the Christian Stewardship Network because I've had so much that I've learned from it and it's been so valuable. I just would like to have Chris just talk a little bit about the Christian Stewardship Network, a little bit about the history, and why should someone be involved?
Sure. Christian Stewardship Network started about 16 years ago with a small group of folks who were actually serving as stewardship pastors in different churches around the country. And they were looking for others that were doing the same thing so they could learn from each other. And this group came together and then just organically they sort of made a determination, we're going to meet every year. We'll talk on the phone and stuff like that in between, but we'll meet every year to come together and share some best practices, learn from each other, and really be an iron sharpening iron kind of a thing and get better at what we do. So that was how Christian Stewardship Network started.
Right. Good.
Many years ago.
Good. I've been involved for about 10 years. And Robert Morris came and preached. We were in the forum, and he preached, and he came up to me and he said, you did a really good job with the introduction. I was doing the introduction, I was doing the offering. And I said, he goes, what do you do here? I said, I'm the pastor of stewardship. And then you know what he said to me? Yeah, we have pastor of stewardship at our church. And you know what I thought right then and there? That I was the only pastor of stewardship in the United States of America. I actually was hurt when he said it. I said, oh, there's more? And then I thought I was the only one.
And that is a really good point because there are so few of us. And we're spread all across the country. The next closest stewardship pastor might be 100 miles away from you. And so we needed to be very intentional about giving an opportunity for people to connect with other stewardship people that speak the same language. And then to be able to share best practices. So we're not always, because of our isolation geographically, we're not always reinventing the wheel. We share things back and forth and build upon what somebody else has, and then establish some friendships that you never otherwise would have established in your local community.
Right, and that's why I call it Christian Stewardship Network, because we can work together. Because I had I call it Lone Ranger syndrome, where I was trying to develop everything on my own. And then we actually even have a table, which you have to come to see, actually. We have a share table where you can see what everyone's doing around the country. Because then Dave, I'm going to give you a little bit of credit here today. He did something, we used to do this seminar called Epic Fail, where one time they got up and said things they tried that didn't work. And the funny part about it was there was 2 times where I was getting ready to try something, and then I watched someone go up there. I was like, okay, take that off the list. And you go through different things. But we learn a lot from each other. Dave, your experience with getting started with the Stewardship Network?
Well, the bottom line is my ministry is significantly better for the time that I spend with Chris and the time that I spend with you and the time that I spend with other leaders. I know my ministry is tangibly better equipped to help people because I've been drawn upon the ideas of other people that see things differently and have tried things differently. And so there isn't one time we've gotten together or I've talked to anybody from the Christian Stewardship Network that I didn't come away better equipped in my toolbox of ways to help people. But apart from that, some of my closest friends on this earth are in the Christian Stewardship Network because we've shared so much together. And it's been something that goes far beyond the dollars and cents or the classes or the seminars. These are just people I love to be around.
No, that's good. It's good because it's like you're getting around, when we all come together, it's like we're all start speaking the same language. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is so much fun. What is a stewardship ministry at a church?
That's a great question. Well, I think you have to start with the basic foundation of what is a steward, right? A steward is somebody who manages that which belongs to somebody else. So in a biblical worldview, we believe that God owns everything.
Psalms 24:1.
Right? So God, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, right? So God owns everything. Our job is to manage what he's given us, so that makes us stewards or managers or servants or however you want to translate that. So if the church is going to help stewards be better at what they do, well, what they do is stewardship, right? That's the role of the steward. So stewardship ministry is anything that really helps somebody become a better steward. So it's really simple that way. The problem in the church is that we confuse words. And so when we want to do a giving message, we call it a stewardship message because it's kind of a way of disguising that we're talking about giving.
Right.
And it's really about Giving, right? So we've kind of confused people about what the word means sometimes by misusing it.
Right, and then that also, when I first started at our church, I used to come up and I decided after we found all the giving records, I said, let me just start calling members of the church and just thanking them for giving. Call up, hello, hey, this is Pastor George Thompson, and I'm calling you from the church, and look at this. Hello, yeah, I paid my tithes. Like, the defenses were up. A lot of times people in our ministry don't know that this is a whole life ministry, that we don't just, it's just not purely finances, that we teach time, talent, and treasure. You know, people have time, right? There's 86,400 seconds in a day. How well you manage that will also dictate how well you'll do in life. And then you want to, how much of that time do you spend glorifying the kingdom? The second is everyone is talent. Everyone is uniquely made. I'm a twin and I have twins, but we all have different fingerprints. It says in Ephesians 2:10 that we're uniquely made. And the third area is treasure, how well we manage our finances. We want to make sure that we spread that out and teach all of that, not just purely finances or not just purely fundraising, that we're teaching and we're equipping people to do that. Your comments
the
about
other thing I think is important here, and sometimes we don't want to talk about this, but this ministry can be discouraging. It really can be discouraging because we're isolated, because there are not that many of us that are in our local geographical area. And we can have great expectations for what our ministry ought to do, and then we get discouraged that fewer people participate. And what do you do with that discouragement? Well, if you're isolated and you don't have anybody to deal with, that discouragement can overwhelm you. But if you talk to your friends at the Christian Stewardship Network and you find out, oh, you think that's bad, let me tell you my discouraging story.
Right.
And you begin to realize that this can be a hard ministry.
It's a tough ministry.
But it's a significantly easier ministry when you're doing it locking arms with others doing the same ministry.
Hey, this is David Thompson with Gateway Church in Southlake, Texas, and you're listening to the CSN podcast.
So if somebody was new or thinking about getting involved with the Christian Stewardship Network, what is something that you would tell them, Chris?
Do it.
Yes.
Yeah, do it. So yeah, there's a few things that we do. One is we connect people through things like podcast. You know, there's a lot of training, like podcasts. We do videos, things like that, blog and so forth. So the ChristianStewardshipNetwork.com. But the big event we do every year is called the Forum.
Yes.
And we do the Forum at the end of February every year, and that's where we all get together. And this is the gathering of church stewardship leaders in the country.
Yes.
And this is where we get together. I mean, this is what we're doing now, obviously, but this is where we get together, and I can learn about what you're doing. I can learn about what Dave's doing. I can take some ideas home. So I get significantly better at what I do as a stewardship pastor. Right. So there's really three functions of CSN. Fellowship, which is connecting us together so we can encourage each other and things like that. Discipleship, because we're going to learn from each other. Right? We're all going to get better and grow.
Iron sharpens iron.
Iron sharpens iron. And the third one is evangelism. Right. So here's what I mean by that. There are people who sometimes wonder, like, should I have a stewardship ministry in my church? So we had a lot of head pastors, executive pastors that kind of come, they're trying to figure it out. Right. When they see what goes on here and when they see the ultimate fruit that is born in the churches, they want to have a stewardship ministry. And so if they're considering that, the best place to come is come down to the Forum or come to one of our Stewardship Impact workshops where we teach some foundational elements of stewardship ministry, how to start and build a healthy stewardship ministry.
Good. Last question for Dave is that when you are teaching, there's a class they teach. It's called Stewardship Impact. And I went for 7 years in a row. If you guys could just explain a little bit about Stewardship Impact, and then I'd like to tell you about the impact it's had on me.
Well, this is something that Chris and I put together a few years ago. And what we wanted to do is say, let's assume someone is just starting out in their stewardship ministry, or perhaps they've had some bumps in the road and they want to improve their stewardship ministry. What are all the things we would want them to know if we could have them for 6 or 7 hours? And so we talk about the theology of money. We talk about why stewardship matters. And then we work down to some of the ways to promote generosity, and then down into the specifics, like how do you even start a stewardship ministry? How do you acquire and recruit volunteers? How do you train them? How do you organize them? Everything we would want somebody to know if they were starting out, and we could share some of the things we've learned over the years. What else would you say?
I guess what I would say is, like, almost 100% of the people that go through the Stewardship Impact workshop leave saying, I wish I had done this before.
Yeah.
I wish
Right.
somebody
That's
had told
true.
me this stuff earlier.
That's true.
And so our feedback is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, and why it's phenomenal also, just from someone that's been doing this for some time, is that you can go out and try to reinvent the wheel and fix it, but it's almost like you guys are like, when you used to go to the back in college, back of the bookstore, and they have something called Cliff Notes, being yellow, have the yellow with the little black lines. It's like they're literally walking through how you not only start a ministry, but how you implement things, and then even how to train volunteers, how to walk through it. It is like going through a weekend crash course that can set you up to get an MBA. Sorry to set it so high, the bar so high for you guys, but there's a story that is told, I'll tell you about, where you talk about budgeting as being a fence, and how you walk and how you do that. And Dave, you remember always telling that story?
Yep.
Yeah, one of the cool things that we try to accomplish is to get people from thinking a budget is a terrible thing that's going to hurt them to getting them to embrace it as something that is truly a positive in their life. And so we call the budget a freedom fence.
Right.
And we call it a freedom fence because the reality is that when there are no fences, there is no freedom, because there is so much danger without any barriers of safety.
Right.
And what a fence does is it separates that which is safe from that which is unsafe.
Right.
And so if a budget is simply a freedom fence around your money, and you stay within the fence, you can spend that money without the danger of going into debt or the danger of getting out of control.
Right.
And so you build this fence that creates financial safety as it separates danger from safety. And so then all of a sudden people are beginning to view a budget not as an enemy, but as a friend.
Because it
Right.
creates a sense of security.
It creates this
And
security.
what's so important about that is that I teach budgeting, and we all teach it at different places, that every time you watch another stewardship pastor teach it, it's like you're looking at it from a different angle and different lens and using it. By the way, I've used that story several times. Just want to let you know I'm not paying you anything.
And I don't remember getting any royalties on that at all.
All right, gotcha. Jesus paid it all, you're going to do the same. So it is just, again, we could do this for quite some time, but I just wanted to give you an opportunity just to kind of see a little bit about the Christian Stewardship Network and getting involved. This is your host, George Thompson. I want to thank Dave Briggs and Chris Goulard for coming in today. I'm your host with the Christian Stewardship Network. You can get more information at christianstewardshipnetwork.com. Also, find us on social media and like us, share us, and subscribe. Look forward to seeing you on our next episode.